Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Nadine and I create all kinds of videos on my channel. I create midwifery related content and I also create some fashion, beauty and lifestyle videos. So if you're not subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. And for all my returning subscribers tuning in to a brand new video, hello, hi, and welcome back to a brand new video. So in today's video, I'll be listing the things that they don't tell you while you are studying to become a midwife in university, the things that they just don't tell you before you actually qualify and you go out there and work as a newly qualified midwife. If you're already a midwife and you've been working, these things will sound familiar to you because we've been there, I've been there, and we just know what actually happens. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Okay, so I've got the list of things here on my phone, so I'm gonna go into detail and say them out one by one. So the first thing that they do not tell you while you're at university studying to become a midwife is you'll be an expert at holding your pee while working as a qualified midwife. So what I mean by this, you will go long periods of hours without actually going to the toilet and emptying your bladder. So basically you will get shifts that can be quite hectic, that can be quite full on, and you won't find the time to literally go to the toilet just to pee. So you will be an expert at holding your urine and not going to the toilet for hours. For example, for me, I've gone to a shift and I've left the shift without actually going to the toilet. So that's 12 hours. So yeah, you'll be an expert at holding your urine because it can be quite stressful, it can be quite demanding, it can be quite hectic. I'm not saying it's the same with every single shift or it's the same with everywhere you work, so every single department is different. So for example, if you're working in a clinic, you have time in between each client to actually go to the toilet before you see another client, but on the ward, especially on labor ward or the postnatal ward or antenatal ward, where it's more demanding, you have more than one patient that you're looking after, you will literally have to hold your urine because you have, you know, so many CTGs to look at, or your patient is going into theatre for an emergency section and you have to go into theatre with her and you can't leave until the baby comes out. So you will be an expert at holding your urine and not going to the toilet until you find time, and that might be a couple of hours after. So you will be an expert at holding your pee. So the next thing that they don't tell you is you'll be an expert at not eating for long periods of time. So not eating. So this is similar to the first point. So because it's busy, sometimes, not always, because it can get quite busy and it can get quite hectic, food or having your lunch or having your dinner can just go out the window and you will literally, you know, go 5-6 hours without having nothing to eat. So for me, I remember bringing my lunch to work. Say I'm doing a long day, I brought my lunch to work and I won't have my lunch till 6 p.m. and I'm finishing work at 8 p.m. So I started my shift at 8 a.m. I brought my lunch, so lunch was supposed to be around 12, 1, 2 p.m. I didn't have my lunch all the way until 8 p.m. until I was going home. Or I won't have my lunch the whole shift because it's really busy. So one thing they don't tell you is that you'll be an expert at going long periods of time without having anything to eat. So the next thing that they don't tell you while you're a student midwife is you don't get paid if you stay after work or after the time you're supposed to finish to complete your notes. So let me explain this. So say for example you've had a very hectic shift and a very busy shift and you're behind on your documentation. If you have to stay past 8 o'clock, so your finishing time is 8 o'clock, if you have to stay past 8 o'clock, which is your finishing time, and you're, you know, staying behind to do your documentation, they will not pay you to do your documentation after hours or after your work hours. So I've had colleagues, I've never done this before, I may have stayed like 30-20 minutes after my shift, but I've never stayed like hours after. I've had a colleague that was finishing at 8 p.m. and she didn't leave until after midnight, and they didn't pay her because she stayed till midnight to do her documentation. Nope. it was up to her to figure it out during the shift in order for her to finish her paperwork, to finish on time. But because her paperwork didn't get finished on time, because the shift was hectic, they did not pay her because she didn't finish her documentation and she stayed later than she was supposed to finish. So that's one thing they do not tell you. If you don't finish your documentation on time and you stay after your shift has finished to complete it, they do not pay you for that. However, there are some times where you are finishing late and it's not your fault. For example, the midwife that's taken over from you is stuck in traffic and you're having to wait an hour or 45 minutes until she gets there. They will actually pay you for that. Some places where you work, depending on where you work. If someone is late, or if you're, you had an emergency section in theatre and everything is taking forever to round up and you're having to still be in theatre, they will actually pay you for staying late. But things like documentation that you haven't done during your shift, they won't pay you for. But if it's something that they are in charge of or they are in control of, like for example other midwives coming on shifts that are late, then they will pay you for having to stay with that woman until the other midwife arrive. So if you're staying there for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour waiting for the other midwife to come on shift for you to hand over, then you go to your manager and say, I stayed here till this time because a midwife was running late and I had to stay, there was no one else to hand over to. Then they'll give you that time back, or they'll pay you for that time that you stayed. Okay, so the next one is your uniform will be free. I feel like a lot of people think that the uniform, you have to pay for it as soon as you qualify and you start a new job. So I get loads of people saying, oh, how much was your uniform? How much did you have to pay for your dress, for your tunic, for your jumper and things like that? Your uniform is actually free. So when you start at a new place, well, this is dependent on where you work. Where I work and where majority of the London hospitals in London, the uniforms for newly qualified midwives or new people that are joining the trust is free. So the manager just gives you a form and you take it to the uniform office, and then they measure you and then they give you your uniform for free. You get a free uniform, you get a free dress, you get a free tunic and trousers, you get a free jumper and things like that. So your uniform is free and it's given to you by the hospital. You do not have to pay for your uniform. I feel like there's a lot of student midwives that think that you have to pay for your uniform or pay for your scrubs. Scrubs are free. You can, you arrive on shift and you just pick a scrub and you wear it and you don't have to pay for it. So uniform is free. We do not have to pay for our uniform. So another thing that they don't tell you is that you will be obsessed with your pen or the pens that you have. So let me just explain this to you. So being in the healthcare field, whether you are a nurse, whether you are a doctor, we are all the same. We are always fighting over pens. We are always looking for pens. We are always trying to keep our pens. So let me tell you guys a story. So I was on labor ward. I had just transferred a woman from antenatal ward to labor ward, and she was, it was time for her to go to the next stage of her laboring experience. So she asked for an epidural, so I called the anaesthetist to come and insert the epidural, and then the anaesthetist didn't have his pen and he was like, oh, can I borrow your pen? And I was just like, at first I was like, okay, cool, no problem. And then I realized, like, that's my only pen. If I have to go back upstairs onto the ward, I won't have a pen. So I stalked this anaesthetist until he gave me my pen back. It's that deep. Like, he was using the pen in the same room as me, but I literally had my pen on top of my mind and made sure that he gave it back to me or asked for it back before he left the room and went to see another patient. So yeah, so he was documenting with my pen and I was just looking over, making sure that he's still there, making sure that he's still using my pen. And he was about to leave with my pen. Like, obviously people forget a pen is just a pen. It's so small, people pay it no mind. But guys, you lose so many pens on this job that you literally cherish the pen and you're obsessed with your pen, that when anyone borrows it or takes it, you're literally, you're obsessed and you're just losing your mind. So yeah, he was about to take my pen and I was like, can I have my pen back? And I was, I had to like stop him from going with my pen, and he was like, oh yeah, and then he gave my pen back and I was looking at him like, oh, you wanted to keep my pen, didn't you? But yes, you will be obsessed with your pen or the pens that you have in the hospital. So another thing is, you will start documenting everything out of fear. So let me explain this. So obviously we have to document, and we have to document everything accurately and everything that actually happens. But once you're a qualified midwife, you are so scared about losing your PIN that you worked so hard to get, whether you worked 18 months to get or you worked 3 years to get, that you literally document everything that has happened, everything that was said, the times, every single thing. So once you're qualified, you will soon realize that you will be documenting everything, literally everything down to the T. For example, I work on the antenatal / postnatal ward, and I tend to look after the antenatal women, and if they don't go down to labour ward on time, I find myself having to document, because if you don't document, it didn't happen. It's a saying in the healthcare field that if you don't document, then it didn't happen. You can't, you know, you could do something for a lady, say for example, you gave her pain relief, and then later on, you know, a couple of hours passed, and the doctor's like, oh, this woman said that you never gave her anything for pain. Like, she can go tell the doctor saying, oh, I've never received anything for pain, I've been in pain this whole time, blah 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 blah. And the doctor's gonna come back to me and say, oh, you never gave this woman pain. And I'll be like, but I gave her pain medication. What is she talking about? I gave her pain medication. But because I didn't document it, where's my proof? How does he know that I actually gave her pain relief? Do you understand? So you're gonna be so obsessed with documenting everything, because if you didn't document it, then it didn't happen. I don't even like that saying or that phrase, because obviously now we're in this mind frame that we just have to literally document literally every single thing, and you're in the fear of like losing your PIN, and you're always like a constant fear of like losing your PIN. You have to document everything, but that's generally how it is in the healthcare professionals. You literally will be documenting everything out of fear of losing the PIN, or out of fear of, you know, a client telling you that you didn't do this, or you didn't ask her for consent, or you didn't do that, or you didn't do that, or you didn't do that. So yeah, we document a lot of things, or everything, out of fear. So the next one is, it can take up to a year to truly feel like you know what you're doing as a newly qualified midwife. And that is 100% true, because I qualified about a little over a year now, and I didn't know what I was doing 4 months in, 5 months in, 6 months in. It literally has taken me a whole year and a bit to be confident and to know what I'm doing. Even now, after a year, I'm still constantly asking questions, I'm still constantly second guessing myself, and I'm still constantly thinking, is this the right thing to do, or should I do this? So it can take you up to a year, or a little bit more, or a little bit over, depending on how you retain information, depending on how the preceptorship program is like for you. It can take up to a year for you to actually know what you're doing as a newly qualified midwife. It doesn't happen straight away after you qualify and something just turns on and you're actually like an amazing midwife and you go out there. Some people, it does happen. Some people literally qualify and fly through with flying colors and become, you know, experts in where they are and what they're doing. But I'm saying for majority, for about 98% of the newly qualified midwife, it takes them up to a year to actually know what they're doing, to feel comfortable, to feel, you know, competent in their role, and to actually do their job confidently without having to second guess themselves and kind of just do it like it's second nature. So that is something that they do not tell you. It can take up to a year for you to comfortably and competently know what you're doing as a newly qualified midwife. It doesn't happen 1 month in, it doesn't happen 2 months in. If it does, then that's great for you, but for me, it didn't happen 1 month in, it didn't happen 3 months in, 5 months in, 8 months in. It happened like literally after a year, couple months after a year. Now I'm feeling like I know what I'm doing, I'm going with the flow. Even now I'm still like asking questions and I still like don't know what I'm doing and things like that. So it can take a while for you to know what you're doing after you qualified and after you become a newly qualified midwife. So the next one is, you will have really bad and horrible days, but also some pretty amazing and beautiful days while working. So this is true. I've had some really bad, horrible days. This even something that happened to me last week when I was doing a bank shift. So I had literally a horrible shift last week Saturday. So my lady was on the antenatal ward and she was basically being induced, and when they are able to go down to labor ward, say for example they are 4 centimeters dilated, contracting regularly, or they need to be ARM'd, they need to break their waters on labor ward, what we have to do as midwife is call labor ward and say, I have this lady, she's ready to go down to labor ward, it's time for her to have, you know, augmentation, or it's time for her to break her waters, or she's 4 centimeters dilated and she's in active labor. So what I did was I called the midwife on labor ward, the coordinator actually, I called the coordinator on labor ward, and I was like, this lady is this, and she's, you know, she's due to come down, it's time for her to come down now, there's nothing I can do for her up here, she's in a lot of pain, she, you know, she's not coping with the medication that we have up here, she wants the epidural, and of course we can't do epidural on the antenatal ward. So obviously labor ward, they're short staffed, they don't have enough beds, so she was like, we can't take her at the moment, just try and keep her stable, try and keep her comfortable, manage her pain. And I was like, okay, cool, fine. I basically tried my best to keep, you know, her pain under control. And then I think like an hour or two later, I was like, yeah, this woman is literally in a lot of pain, and she is progressing, she's now 5 centimeters and she's still up here. And then I called again and she was like, no, I have no midwife, and I was like, but she needs to come down, she's 5 centimeters, what do you mean you have no midwife? I can't keep her up here, and if she has this baby then she'll have this baby up here, there's no doctors, there's nothing here for me to safely deliver this baby on the ward. And then she was like, well, I have no midwife, so I was just like, what is going on? Obviously I escalated it to who I needed to escalate, and everyone was saying, well, you just have to wait or keep calling her. So I kept calling her, to the point where she started feeling pressure to push. And then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go down there. So I called the midwife and I was like, she's feeling pressure to push, I'm gonna just bring her down. And then she gave me a room just like that. She was like, yeah, okay, cool, bring her in room 5. So I brought her in room 5 and I was like, so you just found this room just like that, but you couldn't just anyways, I was just whatever, maybe they generally didn't have a room, so I was just like, you know what, let me just bring this woman down, because at the end of the day that's what I need to focus on. So I brought this woman down. Anyway, so I'm handing over to the midwife on labor ward, who's actually taken over the care and who's going to look after this client. And then before I went, the woman was like, oh, can I have the epidural? And then obviously at this point she's fully dilated and it's too late for an epidural, but this woman wanted an epidural from the beginning. So now she becomes so like upset with me, saying that how it was my fault for not bringing her down, that I lied to her, that I delayed the whole process, and I was like, what? I was like, huh? So yeah, so she was just very upset, and she was basically blaming me for not having her epidural and for not bringing her down to labor ward. But I explained to her, I was like, I called them numerous times, and I showed her the times I called them. I had all my paperwork and all my evidence. I showed her the times I called them and what they said to me at each time I called them, so that they know so that she knows that I tried my best to bring her down for her epidural. And then obviously she was calm by it, she was nice about it, she was like, okay, fine, it wasn't your fault, and but yeah, it really made me feel really like shit. Like I felt really bad. Like I left the room and I was like, how like, because of the shortage of staff, because of the lack of resources, you know, women are not having the care or the, you know, the birthing experience that they want, and obviously they take it out on us, the midwives, but there's nothing we can do about it. That day I just felt so bad. Like I felt bad. I went back upstairs and I was like, yeah, I can't have, you know, women thinking like it's all my fault. Like I did my best with this lady, like I did my absolute best to bring her down, but the fact that she thought it was my fault for not, yeah, it was a whole at that point I was like, yeah, I'm really ready to go home. But obviously I didn't go home. I stayed and cared for the other ladies that I had, but I thought it shouldn't happen. I mean, come on, Boris, give us the stuff we need so these things don't happen, give us the resources that we need so things like this don't happen, and you know, and the women actually get the care that they want. But yeah, that was a very bad and horrible day for me. Like I don't have horrible days where I work. I feel like where I work is absolutely amazing. amazing, and I rarely have horrible days, but you will have horrible days, and you also have amazing and beautiful days where you help a woman and she's literally having the most beautiful experience, and you see the love and care and, you know, that she shows you and all the support that you've given her. But yes, that's something that they do not tell you while you are in midwifery school. I think I've just messed with my like lens, my settings. What have I done with my settings? I don't know, it looks really funny, but I'm gonna continue with the next point. I don't know, it looks so weird and I don't know how to change it. Oh my gosh. Is that okay? Yeah, I think we're back. Right, so the next thing they don't tell you while you are studying to become a midwife is the most of what you learn in midwifery school will be forgotten, and you will have to learn everything all over again once you are a qualified midwife. So what I mean by this is not everything you learn you will forget. No, that's not what I'm saying. But most of what you learn at university while you're a student midwife, you will forget once you are qualified. Like for example, when I was a student midwife, we had a medication exam that we had to pass. We had to get 100% and pass. So the medication exam or test included of midwifery exemption, so medication a midwife can give or prescribe without having a doctor around or doctor nearby to prescribe it with this medication that we can give. So obviously as a student midwife, I knew all of these medication to the T, like to the back of my hand. I knew all of these medications. Come when I qualified, I'm here asking the other midwives, I'm like, what's on the midwifery exempt? Or is ibuprofen on the midwifery exempt? Is paracetamol on the midwifery exempt? Like I'm here trying to ask and remember what is actually on the list and what a midwife can give without a doctor around. So things like that and other things that you know, you forget. Obviously you never forget your birth emergencies. I haven't forgotten my birth emergencies, but the way they are done are different, so you have to relearn them. So that's something that you have to relearn. But birth emergencies are basically kind of universal. Wherever you go, the birth emergencies are the same. Medication might be different, but you know, they're all the same and they're kind of based around the same guidelines. So the birth emergencies are basically the same. So the birth emergencies that I learned in university, I never forgot. I kind of just knew them. Every time I was in emergency, I was like, right, this is what I need to do. I need to rub off a contraction. I need to, you know, IV fluids, she needs IV access, she needs bloods, she needs this, she needs that. Like those kind of things I never forget. But things like medication, like midwifery exempt, the doses, how to calculate, things like that just flew out the window when I was qualified, and I had to basically relearn them and kind of figure it out again once I was qualified. So one thing they do not tell you, that most of what you learn at university you forget after you are qualified, after you are newly qualified midwife, and you just have to basically relearn them. And it's fine, because obviously the 3 years or the 18 months, everything is like jam packed. It's very hard for you to remember everything. There's things that you're gonna have to go back on and read again and be like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. While I'm, you know, things make sense while you're qualified. But as a student, you're basically trying to learn and trying to pass your exams and trying to basically not get kicked off the course. But you have to put everything in perspective once you are a qualified midwife, and that's when you have to kind of basically relearn everything, because everything just after you finishing being a student. Okay, so the next thing that they don't tell you while you are at university, or maybe they do tell you this one, because I remember my tutor telling me this one, but sometimes they don't mention this while you're studying. So let me just, you know, give you guys a heads up, is doctors may ask you to do their job for you while you are a qualified midwife. So what I mean by doctors may ask you to do the job for you is because some doctors basically rotate and they work in different departments while they are studying or while they are finishing their course or their degree. So when they come into maternity and start working in obstetrics or gynecology, they are going to ask you what they need to do or how to prescribe something. So for example, I had a doctor come to me and then I was like to him, oh, I need you to prescribe medication, this woman is going to be induced. And then he was like, oh, can you tell me the medication that she needs? And I was like, okay, she needs Propes, she needs Prostin, can you also prescribe pain relief for her? Can you also prescribe pethidine? Can you also prescribe anti-sickness? And da. So I basically listed all the medication that we basically, you know, the standard ones when a woman is basically being induced. And then the doctor was like, oh, what's the dosage for these medication? And I was like, and then I had to tell him the dosage of the medication. And then there was another time where a doctor came on and then he was like, oh, the doctor can only examine a woman if she needs a second Prostin. So I called the doctor to come and examine this woman for a second Prostin, and then basically he was like, can you do the examination and let me know whether she needs a second Prostin? And I was like, but that's your job, you're supposed to do that. And he was like, oh, like he didn't know. And then obviously he examined the woman, and then he told me his findings, and then he was, you know, basically consulting in me, asking me whether we should give her another Prostin or take her downstairs to labor ward. And I was just like, but you're supposed to tell me, you're supposed to come here and examine and make that decision. You know, that's our protocol, that's what we're supposed to do. So yes, there will be some times where doctors will ask you certain questions on how to do things, or what's the right dosage, or what's the medication that is needed for this, that, because some doctors do not stay in one place for a very long time, and they move around and they get new doctors to come onto the ward, and they don't know much about maternity and pregnancy and all of that jazz. So you would have to basically know your stuff and know that they're prescribing the right medication or the right dosage, or they're, you know, making the right plan. For example, if a woman comes with PV bleed and a doctor's basically made a plan for her to go home, I'll be like, she's not going home. We need to observe the PV bleed for at least 24 hours to see if it improves, and we need to monitor baby to see how baby is doing. So you need to kind of know your stuff. If a doctor makes a plan like that for a woman that's so high risk, that has come in with like reduced fetal movements, and she's coming with a history of PV bleed, and the doctor's like, you know, send her home, you can then question it and be like, why are we sending her home? She needs to be inside. Because sometimes they don't know, and you need to be that midwife that puts your foot down and actually advocates to these women and make sure that they are, you know, receiving the proper care and the proper plan. Because obviously a woman like that with that kind of history of reduced fetal movements with PV bleed, and she comes into triage, I am not sending her home straight away. I'm making sure that I monitor the bleed for at least 24 hours, and I'm monitoring baby within those 24 hours, and also she has another review in the morning before she goes home, and see if there's anything else that came or that happened within that 24 hours. So a plan of just send her home would not sit right with me. I'll just be telling the doctor like, we're not doing that. Can I have another doctor, because we need to discuss this further. So yes, that's something that they do not tell you while you are a student midwife. Okay, so another thing that they don't tell you is you will endure many shifts where you are short-staffed and there's not enough midwives that are needed for that shift. So you will come onto a shift and there's supposed to be, say for example, there's supposed to be 5 of you, and you come on a shift and there's 3. That will happen very often in the kind of situation that we are, and the lack of midwives and the shortage of staff, the lack of resources. There will be times where you come on shifts and there's supposed to be 5 of you and you arrive and there's only 3, and then you're having to do more than you intended. You're having to look after more women than you intended, or things are being late, or things are being delayed, and things like that. So you will be coming onto a shift where you're basically short-staffed and you're kind of having to figure it out, or the managers or the people that run the show are having to figure it out and make sure that everything is safe and you're working in a safe environment. But that is very likely that you will have many shifts as a newly qualified midwife where you are short and you are having to do more than you are expected of, and you are expected to do more than you know expected to do because you are short-staffed. And that is just what we have to do in the kind of situation that we're in currently with the shortages that is going on in maternity and in the midwifery world. Okay, so the next one is your career growth and progression is up to you. So if you're interested in a senior position, or if you're interested in another career or in other training opportunities, to get that or to be at that next level, your career progression is up to you. One thing you need to remember once you're qualified is your managers won't randomly just promote you. You'll wake up one day, you receive an email saying, oh well, congratulations, you're now a band 7 because you've been working here for 2 years or you've been working here for 3 years. No. Your career progression is all dependent on you and yourself. If you see something like a senior position, like a band 7, a band 8, it's up to you to do your research, apply for the job, go for the interview and get that job. No one is going to spoon feed you. No one is going to just promote you randomly for a senior position or to, you know, and things like that. So your career progression is solely depending on you and depending on what you want to do and where you want to go. So for example, there's midwives that have been at a band 6 for like years and years, and they're just happy at a band 6 and they don't want to, you know, go higher. They don't want to go, you know, change scenery and things like that. But if you want to, you do your research, you go and apply and you go and sit that interview and get that position. But if you don't, you'll stay as a band 6 forever and that will be it. Obviously there's times where your manager will put out a role for a more senior position and she'll come to you and be like, you'll be good for this, I think you should apply. But if you don't apply, you won't get it. Your manager's basically giving you a heads up that there's this new position available. If you want it, it's there and it's already available. Or she's saying that you'll be good for it, but if you don't go for it, if you don't apply for it, if you don't interview for it, then you won't get it and you'll stay at the same level. So your career progression is solely dependent on you and what you do and how you want to progress in your career. I feel like some people just feel like they will automatically be promoted after a few years and or they'll automatically be put into, you know, a more senior role or more. No, it's up to you whether you want to progress or not. Okay, so the last and final one is you will question your decision to become a midwife each and every single time. About 89% of the time you will question why you became a midwife. And I'll tell you this because all the midwives that I've been working with, they have all questioned it. They have all said, why am I still a midwife, or I need to look for another job, da, 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 da. We have all done it. I've done it. I've also, like, I haven't been a midwife for long and I have questioned whether this is for me. I had questioned whether, you know, this was the right choice for me, you know, out of anger, out of, you know, having a bad experience. Like for example, when I had the bad experience last week, I literally questioned. I was like, I can't do this forever. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I can't do this forever. The lack of staffing, the lack of resources is not making like working as a midwife any easier, and there's a lot of strain on midwives and there's a lot of midwives that feel like they can't be midwives anymore. So once you are qualified, you may, I'm not saying this will definitely happen, there's some midwives that qualify and they literally love it until the end of days and they never feel like quitting or they never feel like giving up. But this is no word of a lie, majority of my colleagues, the majority of the people that I speak to, they have those days where they feel like giving up and not being a midwife or questioning the decision of being a midwife. And I'm not saying this to put you off becoming a midwife. I'm not saying this at all, because obviously we will have those moments, yeah? Like for example, I had that moment last week. But the small memory or reminder of the job I do and the impact I make just overcomes me trying to quit my job and leave the world of midwifery. Like that small memory or the memories that I've had over the year outweighs everything, and my decision to stay just remains. Like it's like a quick moment of madness and then you kind of like snap out of it and be like, you know, you remember why you became a midwife and you remember why you love the job and you remember why you did all those essays, all those exams, and why you basically, you know, came to the hospital and why you want to do the job. But you will have those moments where you have those bad days or that bad experiences and you have yourself feeling like, why did I choose to become a midwife, or was this a good decision? But the good outweighs the bad and you will quickly snap out of it, and then you will be an amazing midwife and you will continue to love your career like I do, and then it will just be a short moment of madness. So that is it. That is the final one. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting to you guys. It was a bit different, a bit fun. I haven't recorded in a while in terms of midwifery related content, so I thought I'll start with this one. But if you have enjoyed this video, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps me basically see whether you guys are enjoying my content, what you'd like more of, and things like that. So please give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and of course hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. Also drop me a comment anytime. My DMs are open on Instagram. Please do follow me as well. Happy to answer your questions and happy to hear from you guys as always. But until then guys, I will see you guys in my next video, which will hopefully be soon. I'm back to being a consistent queen. So until then, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.